Welcome to Mr. Truth, where we take real studies from real scientists and we discuss the statistics behind the social trends and what drives our behavior. Mr. Truth, where we ask questions everyone wants to ask and we give answers nobody wants to hear. Mr. Truth. And I'm Dimitri. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of LGFG Fashion House, aka Mr. Truth. And I'm 40 years old. I'm married with 4 kids, and I live in Tallinn, Estonia, which you wouldn't believe by my accent because I'm Canadian raised, like cattle. Name, what you do, age and relationship status.
You know, my relationship status just changed. So I'm thinking like I was in a relationship for 10 years and now I'm not. So what should I say?
Okay, that's what you should say. Okay. So for your relationship for 10 years, who ended it?
I did.
Okay. Are you surprised that you were the one that ended it?
No, not really.
Okay. Because you know 80% of all relationships, like 80% of all marriages are ended by women. And 90% of the woman has a college education. So statistically, we're on trend so far. But what do you do?
I work at LGFG Fashion House. I have an online work, like social media and sales.
Okay.
And I'm 35.
Okay, but one thing interesting about you, Lilian, because you've worked here for a while, you were an actual professional runway model.
I used to be, yeah.
Can you tell us about that? Because I think a lot of girls now are, I'm a model on Instagram, and I'm like, yes, I'm a soldier on Call of Duty, whatever. But you were like an actual runway model. Like, talk about that a little bit.
Well, it included a lot of traveling at young ages, and it was an interesting time, but it wasn't like something I would be willing to do like longer period of time.
So how did you get into that kind of, like, and talk about what kind of modeling was it? Was it like for big brands like Versace and Gucci and Hermes and all that kind of stuff? Like, how did it all work?
Well, it was different. Of course, I started with like less known brands. There were some higher brands in Milan in Fashion Week, and but later more like Estonian brands, Estonian designers, because I wasn't working through agency anymore.
Okay.
So because they take 30%, which is quite big, you know, and it was easier when I decided to live in Estonia, and it was easier for me to, you know, because I knew the fashion scanner here, so it was, yeah, I could manage myself.
Okay, and so how did you get discovered into modeling?
I was actually at the department store with my friend, and we were making a joke. Like we asked like one of the saleswomen there that, oh, how could we be on the posters here? I think we were like 14 or something.
Okay.
And she literally took our names and numbers, and next week we got a call from the agency. But it was like a joke from us. And then we went there, and then it just...
And you made like legitimate money doing it.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, the standards are different today than it was back then. So
you got to travel the world like for free, basically?
Yeah, basically.
So where did you get to go like and do modeling work?
I was in Milan, in Istanbul, in Monaco, in Bangkok, in Athens.
Right. So that's amazing. You know, when I was a 14-year-old boy, nobody was like, hey, fill out a form and be a professional, whatever. Like, great. And then I get to travel the world, which would have been nice as a 14-year-old boy. I think I would have been like, that sounds like fun. Do you think you grew up pretty fast being that long?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, you are independent. You're traveling. You have to like manage everything by yourself. You have like a weekly pocket money, and you have to figure out how to use it. That you won't spend it like on the first 2 days.
Right.
You have to you have to manage a lot of things by yourself.
Okay, so you're going travel. Here's an interesting question. Like, as the model, you're around like all sorts of different people, right? Did it get weird? Like, did like much older guys start hitting on you because like they see this young model going around the world? Did that kind of happen?
It did. It did.
And are they like? And are these like? Some of them are just gonna be like dudes, but are some of them like celebrity level, like extremely wealthy, like they're just throwing money at you?
That as well, yeah.
Really? So what are some, do you have any experiences you can share? Like, obviously don't have to name names, but like, just the crazy kind of offers or like gifts they bestow upon you? Because, you know, that's a lot of people, they're not in that world. Like, that would just be shocking to them, right?
Yeah. There's well, gifts. I don't know. Yeah, there were some bags or jewelry, but usually, if the guy wants to give you a gift, then it's like he expects more from you.
Right.
You know, so it's like I didn't have like that kind of relationships that much, but I was like talking with different
That much.
people.
That's funny.
That much.
Not that
Well,
much.
Yeah, I had one boyfriend in Milan.
Right.
Yeah, and his history was also like pretty wild because he was like his grandfather was like the person who created first bank in Italy or something.
So you had family money.
Yeah.
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 Are those guys with family money, are they different?
Maybe. I think they are not that much show off that the ones that, you know, have like the new money.
Right.
Because they're used to it. It's like natural for them. They don't have to show off, you know. Of course, they have nice things, but it's, yeah, the attitude is different, I would say.
Okay. So, Jaak, tell us about your young modeling career.
I had none.
Uh-huh. Well, okay, so age, what do you do, and relationship status?
I'm 40 years old. My relationship status is single. I have a son who's close to 5 years old, and I'm an entrepreneur. My main specialities is sales and forex automation.
Okay.
So currency trading automation.
So one thing about you is your ex-wife is kind of famous and insane, I heard. We're on camera, by the way, so just go wild, man. This is your chance.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories about her.
Okay.
She's famous, yeah.
So you married a famous chick.
Yeah.
So how did that all
No,
actualize?
not we were never married.
Well, that's an Estonia thing. We're going to talk about that because
Yeah.
Estonians tend to not get married.
Yeah.
Like, you were in a 10-year relationship. Were you married? No.
No.
And you were in a relationship, how long with her?
About 2 years.
Okay. But you had a kid together, etc. Not married.
Not married.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom's been in a relationship for 20 years, not married.
That's interesting about Estonia. Like, so Estonians lived, we know so many couples that, like me and my wife know, that they are together, they have families, like kids and everything, and they're just not married at all.
I think it might have to do with Christianity not being as popular as in other countries. Maybe.
Yeah, so there's no religiosity in Estonia, right? This is I think
Pagans.
a completely, yeah, this is one of the most agnostic or atheistic countries in the world. I think officially there's no state religion here. And I'm going to look at some data and see how that actualizes through the outcomes of what the relationships people have. But Alex, first introduce yourself.
So my name is Alex. I'm 21 years old. I'm a recruiter at LGFG, and that's pretty much it about me. When it comes to the marriage thing, then actually my parents are married. My grandparents are married. My sister's married. Everyone's married. And I'm in a relationship, and at one point I want to get married as well.
And so you're 21.
Yeah.
And how long have you been in the relationship?
2 years.
So you've been in a relationship since 19.
Yeah.
And are you going to marry the guy that you're in a relationship with right now?
It seems so.
Okay, that's interesting. So at 19, you were like, okay, I'm going to date this guy. And at 21, you're thinking already like about marriage and stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Do you think that's normal for gals in Estonia to think that way?
I don't think so. Maybe why I have this mindset is because before this relationship, I was in a 4-year relationship.
Okay.
So it was a long relationship then. And I kind of grew up pretty quick comparing to some other girls that are my age.
Right.
So I kind of like grew up and got that mindset that I want to actually start building something, not just clubbing around, going to parties, weekends and everything. So I think I got that mindset from that 4-year relationship. I was doing like tied at home basically. I wasn't going to any parties and stuff. So from there I got that understanding that I want to settle down at one point, and it came quicker than I thought, because after the 4-year relationship ended, it was really quick that I went to a new relationship, and it's kind of a decision I've made already that I want to go with this forever.
Do you think that other peers around your age in Estonia are more like you or less like you, or what do you think about that?
Less like me, if I even think about my girlfriends that I have.
Yeah.
They haven't gone to this a stage in their life where they want to like settle down. Of course, they're thinking about it, but it's not that serious that they want to like actually start building a future with someone.
Do you think you made a self-realization that you might potentially thought in a more, let's say, traditional way at some point, like a couple of years ago?
Yeah, for sure.
So you actually were self-aware, like I think a little bit like this. And
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been since I was like younger already.
Yeah.
Since 12, 13, I was always like, I've had a lot of siblings around me. Like I have sisters and a sister and brothers. So I had to grow up really quickly, and I was kind of in a parent role in some ways as well because I was helping my parents with all the siblings. So I understood then already that I was doing more at home than comparing to other kids. For an example, I helped to take care of my siblings, and I did some home things comparing to other kids when they were just like going to some festivals that my parents did not allow me to go. So I didn't have that much freedom. I had pretty restrictive parents when it comes to where I could go and what I can do. So already then I understood that I'm not even like similar to other people comparing to my friends. So yeah.
Yeah, can I ask you a question? Do you think Estonian girls, like, you know, you're single now, you're 40 years old, right?
Yeah.
So you've been dating around a little bit, but you were probably dating
Yeah.
around when you were in your 20s as well.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a different mindset? Like, do you think what Alex is expressing is fairly consistent with the women you know in Estonia, or do you think they tend to go the other way and be more Western?
Things have changed for sure, comparing 10, 20 years ago. I would say that the main thing I have noticed is women feel more, they have more entitlement. It's like 10, 20 years ago, women looked more attractive physically.
You really think that, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
How
so did they look more attractive physically 10, 20 years ago?
They were in better shape.
Even in Estonia?
Yeah.
Really?
Things
Lilian,
are,
you have a thought about that?
Things are changing. I mean, I've spent, as a social project for myself, I've spent a lot of time on Tinder also.
A social project, huh?
Yes.
You're doing some important research.
Yes.
You're exploring the trends of the single mother marketplace, I see.
Including that, yeah.
And what has your research found, Professor?
Like I said, women feel more entitlement. At least that's what it seems to be. So they think that, at least the people on Tinder, many of them, they actually represent themselves not accurately.
Okay.
They use all the photos, fine-tuning, all that stuff, and then when you actually meet the person, it's like, okay, I didn't sign up for this.
Maybe it's the thing about the tuning and the filters and everything that because it's like all around everywhere, men expect women to look like this, and then you meet her and realize, oh, she doesn't look like that. You know, it wasn't there like 20 years ago. Maybe that's
social apps have changed the landscape for sure, but I mean, like, just thinking in my head, like, what does a woman expect? I put all these nice photos on there, maybe like 5-year-old photos or something like that. I have changed. I know I have changed. And then this person meets me, like, what are they going to think about me?
Well, so let's talk about that. So what do women expect?
They expect you to, accept them as they are, no matter how they are.
Do you think that's true? Well, let's ask Lilian. Do you think that a man should accept a woman how she is, regardless of how she is?
Well, it depends, really. Like when she has like a really bad habit, like, I don't know, maybe she's smoking and he doesn't like, and he tells her to quit smoking, you know.
Would you quit smoking if a guy you're dating was like, I want you to quit smoking?
Yeah, if I like the guy, I would definitely think about it.
So you're not necessarily going to do it?
Well, I don't know. Like, I don't smoke, actually, so I don't know how...
Okay, would you take down your social media if a guy asked you to take down your... Like, I don't feel comfortable with your social media.
That was a thing, actually, in my relationship.
Okay, what about it?
I did not.
You didn't do it?
No.
Why?
Because it's also like a place where I earn money.
Were you earning money on social media?
Not too much, but a little bit. So I was like, it's a little bit like my income, so why would I like close it? Because I have like, I don't do like some lingerie photo shoots or that kind of stuff anymore. And that was also because of him, that it made him uncomfortable. So I decided to quit that. but I didn't take down the whole thing.
Okay, so do you think that women now are less attractive in Estonia than 10, 20 years ago? Because you had a thought when Jaak was talking about it.
I haven't actually thought about that before. That's why it made me think. But I think this is it's like a worldwide thing, not only in Estonia. You know, in Thailand, 20 years ago, everyone was very, very skinny and small. You go there now, there's a lot of overweight people, and I think it's all because of the crap food market going everywhere.
So locals are getting overweight there also?
And they have huge problems with that. I have a friend living there, local, and she keeps telling me they open up clinics and everything to get back their normal weight.
So do you guys think that, so here's a question, right? There's this whole Western thing about body positivity, being fat is okay, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that men support that, or do you think that men, because we're afraid to speak out, right? We're like, I don't want to say anything online, I'm going to get my ass burned, right? But do you think men actually want women that are thinner?
I think also that's very different in different places. You know, in Europe, men prefer thin women. But in the States, if I go there, they're like, come on, girl, I'm going to buy you a burger. You know,
okay.
they
So you think that men in the States prefer fatter women?
Not fat, but they prefer curvy ones, like Latin women or...
You guys want to hear some interesting statistics about that? There's some incredible research that's been done on that. And I actually have it in my head too, because the Book of Shame tells you the stats. So here's some statistics, right? Men prefer slimmer women. Not only in local cultures, but cross-culturally, men prefer slimmer women. In fact, it's not only cross-cultural, it's cross-species. The dominant males, or the top social hierarchy males across species, consistently prefer thinner females. And the question is, what does thinner mean, right? So there are some differences. For example, the ideal BMI in Japan, right, body mass index, is a little bit lower than the ideal body mass index in England, right? But in terms of when you look across the spectrum in England, just for England itself, men consistently prefer thinner women. But there's actually a socioeconomic breakdown to it. And this is where it gets really interesting, okay? This is a very strong correlation. There's lots of studies on this that have been cited going back to the 70s and even until today. So we have over 50 years of data on this, right? Wealthier men consistently prefer thinner women. So there's a strong socioeconomic correlation to what men self-reportedly say they want. So I wonder, when I see that study, I'm like, why is it that men that are lower socioeconomic status self-report themselves as preferring larger women?
Because they couldn't get the skinny ones?
Interesting. So see what you've just, so no. So what you just said is that you just implied that thinner women are higher value. That's what you just implied.
No, I was
Well, you said they couldn't get the thinner ones. Why can't they get them? Because they're higher value. Because you assume that the socioeconomic, the lower the man is, the lower value he is in the marketplace, right?
I don't know.
What do you mean? You said it. You
I
said that
thinking
poor
that-
men can't get. Well, what do you mean can't
I was
get?
guessing that maybe this was the outcome. It wasn't exactly my own thought.
Okay, do
It was
thinner
a
women have higher
question.
sexual market value? Sexual market value. Do fit women have higher sexual market value than fat women? Yes or no?
Probably.
Alex, yes or no?
I will go with Lilian, probably.
Why are you afraid to say the truth?
I'm not afraid. It's just I haven't thought about it in a way like that before. I haven't thought analyze it at home or before in my head that hey do I think this or that?
Okay, so let me ask you a question. When you're in a room with other women, do you notice when there are other beautiful women around?
Of course.
Of course.
Of course. See, that's very interesting, right? Because men, there's studies on this as well. Women are extremely perceptive to competition. So you're like, of course I know there's other beautiful women around. It's not, you don't have to think about it, right? So again, there's lots of studies on this. Women perceive other beautiful women around themselves very quickly, and women are very good. And by the way, this is how I know you guys are probably, I know you're not telling the truth, and I'll tell you how I know that you're not telling the truth. Because all the studies consistently demonstrate that women are extremely perceptive to other women and extremely accurate in identifying other attractive women. In fact, when they're given a rating, when they're giving a rating to other women, if you take a sample size of X amount of women, they'll consistently rate the women that they find beautiful to be consistently beautiful at the same score. So women are really, really, really good at perceiving other beautiful women. Do you guys think that men are good at perceiving other beautiful men?
I think so.
No.
Not at all. Studies demonstrate men are extremely bad at evaluating other men's attractiveness to women. And I can prove it.
Okay.
And I can prove it with Jaak right now. Ready, Jaak? You ever seen a guy with a hot girl and you're like, how the hell does that guy get that girl?
Yeah.
Like is that a normal experience for a man?
Yeah, it is.
That's a very normal, like people look at me, it's like, how did you get your wife? You know, but like seriously, like you see like guys, and this is not a one-time occurrence. Like you're literally all this, like, how does that guy keep getting women? Right? That's a very normal experience for a man. And are you girls shocked to hear that's a very shocking experience for a man? And it's very normal?
But it's also because women don't only choose men by their look.
Okay. So how do you think women choose men?
There's like a lot of things, you know, there's humor, there's chemistry, you know. I had
What
a
is
boyfriend,
chemistry?
what is chemistry? You
Yeah.
don't know, you never felt it?
No, just like what is it? I mean,
Well, you have to feel it.
yeah,
It's
what's
like
the
you
cause
can't.
of it?
It's a feeling. It's a good
It's,
feeling.
I'll
you know
tell you
what
what,
you
can I tell you what
feel.
chemistry is? Chemistry is sexual harassment, but the guy's hot. That's chemistry.
Yeah.
Oh, they're laughing and they're blushing and they know it's, and you're like, yep, that's true. You heard it here. Hey, here's a clip for you. You guys ready? When a girl says chemistry, what she means is sexual harassment, but the guy is hot. That's
It
chemistry.
doesn't have to be, the guy doesn't have to be hot, you know, that's the thing. You know, my first boyfriend wasn't hot at all, you know. But I fell in love with him because he was funny and we had this chemistry, you know. Our jokes were matching, everything matched. So, but he wasn't like hot like some kind of male model.
Right, and he was poor and short, I guess.
He wasn't short, but
Oh,
he
really?
wasn't like rich.
So let's talk about what women are really attracted to, right? So this is really interesting. So men are very bad at perceiving other men who are more attractive to women, but men are fairly good at perceiving social status of other men. So this is scientific studies show this. Men perceive social status of other men. Women perceive beauty of other women.
It happens automatically. It's
Talk about that. What does that mean?
You don't even have to think about it, or like how to say, start analyzing like how does this guy look, or how does he behave, or like what words he's using. You just in your head right away you know the status. There's like it's an automatic process. It just happens.
Girls, are you good at identifying a man's status pretty quickly?
I think so.
Alex?
I would say so, but I'm
Can
not
you
sure.
smell money on a guy? Even if he like doesn't dress the part, whatever, can you smell money on a guy? Can you smell competence on a guy?
Well, based on my experience, I would say yes.
Okay.
But then comparing my experience to others, then I don't know if that's like enough experience to like actually say it.
I understand that because you're young and you've been in two
Yeah.
long-term relationships.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
I actually
Lilian,
have a question for you. Who ended the 4-year relationship?
Me. And it was because I wanted to start growing. I felt that I wanted to start building something, and we were not on the same level. Like the guy was showing a lot more interest in video games, for an example, and like still wanted to be in the childhood, and you can say like childhood phase. But I wanted to like travel the world, see stuff, like go do some self-development, I don't know, in a way that I will start playing piano again, because I used to play piano, or do some arts and stuff because I love those things. But we were not in the same, like, we were not on the same level. It went, so...
Okay, so when the relationship started, you were very young, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you kind of grew as a woman, right?
Yeah,
And then at a certain point you realized that this guy is not high value enough for me.
exactly.
that's a blunt way of putting it.
Yeah.
Lilian, can you tell? Can you smell when a guy has status? Like, can you just tell?
I think so. Not always, but maybe
Like, what are some
Usually it's-
signals?
his confidence, definitely, because what gives man confidence, number one thing, is money. And I think that's it, you know, you see his attitude, his confidence, and
So you think what gives a man confidence is money?
I think that's like one of the main things.
I have to agree with you. We have a thing at LGFG Fashion House for our salespeople that we talk about where my president calls it the 6-figure glow. And we have this guy, and he started with us about 5 years ago, right? And he started like making more and more money. And my president told him, he's like, you know, once you cross the 6-figure threshold, you get the 6-figure glow, and women notice you. And I remember the first year he made over 100K, he called me up and he's like, dude, it works. Chicks are recognizing me now. You know, it's like he had this different confidence. And I said, wait till you get to the 250,000 glow. You know, and then he got to the 250,000 mark, and now he's got the 250,000 glow. And now he's got like a beautiful girlfriend, like blah, blah, blah. And he's like, it's crazy, women notice me, blah, blah, blah. And I also believe that what gives a man confidence is money, but I don't think it's a direct link. I think it's an indirect link. And here's how it works, right? I believe I believe that money that a man makes is a reflection of his character. Now, some people are going to say like, oh, you can't say it's not. No, but I truly believe that money is a reflection of character because money is hard to make. Like, is there a lot of competition to make money? Is there competition for it?
Of course.
Sure. Is there competition that's working against you to take what you want? Mm-hmm. Right? And is some of that competition, the higher you get, is that competition more competent?
Of course.
Yeah.
Like you want to start a company, man, like good luck competing against Google. You know, like if you're at that level, you're competing at the most competent. So money is just a byproduct of the competency that you have in your field. It's all it is. It's just a direct correlated link of a byproduct of the competency in your field. So the more money you make, it's actually not just a reflection of the money you make, it's a reflection of the character, the competence, the perseverance, the perspicacity, and all those other factors that contribute towards being successful. Here's some interesting stats. So the correlation between a woman's attraction towards a man it's so high to how much social status he has or how much wealth he accumulates, that it's actually higher than the correlation between your IQ and your grades in school. So when women were asked to rate men according to their attractiveness on different tests, women are generally trending towards the same outcomes, but it's not as consistent as women rating other women. Women tend to disagree which men are more attractive, considerably more than they disagree on which women are attractive. But once you introduce status into the equation, women consistently start picking the same guys. Do you believe that?
I do, yeah. I have a best friend and we are joking, like we like the same type of music, we like the same type of food and drinks and everything. And it's so easy for us to hang out together and go out, especially because our taste in men is like two sides of they're like opposite. So it's like what the guys I find attractive, she's like, oh my God, Lilian, please open your eyes. You know, it's like we have totally different
So you have
taste.
a type?
I don't know. I think I have a certain type. I think it's, I don't know.
Did you have a type growing up, like a specific physical type?
No,
That's the type I go for.
No.
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 Jaak, do you have a type?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your type?
Dark hair.
Okay.
Kind of, I would say Russian looking a little bit.
Are you hitting on me?
No. Of course, fit. And I would say more energetic than the average woman.
Okay, so hot, crazy.
Crazy, but not too crazy. But
Okay.
yeah.
Do you have a type?
Well, if I think about it now, then there might be some things I look in a guy, or like some guys that I've talked with, they have some qualities that are the same. But then yet again, there was this one relationship that I had before this one. One thing was completely different. Usually I go for tall guys.
Right.
But the last one was short.
So here's what's interesting. When done studies comparing variables of what men and women look for in a mate, across all cultures, height is a top 3 attribute for women. There are two things that appear on a men's preferences that do not appear, there are two things that appear on women's preferences that don't appear in men's preferences. Number 1 is height. Number 2 is financial outlook. So the correlation to how much a man is attracted to a woman based on her financial outlook is exactly 0. Men don't care. That's scientific. Men don't care. That's just what the data says, right? But in terms of height, men also don't care. Men don't care if you're 5'2", or I mean, I'm sure if you're 6'4", there might be some challenges because it goes the other way. Women really care about how tall a man is. In fact, the most discriminated group, according to data that I see, is short men. Short men have the lowest romantic prospects of any other men. Short men have the highest drinking rates. Short men have the lowest income. And short men suffer the greatest amounts of depression. So women consistently discriminate against short men, and it's just one of those things where it's like, you don't want to say it, but it's like, well, are you picking that? But in terms of type, it's interesting. So I'm going to tell you guys some data about types if you want to know. So there's actually a very marked difference between men and women when it comes to physical type, okay? A man at around 22, 23 years old formulates his final conclusion about what his type is, and that type never changes until the day he dies. So you're like, how can De Niro in his 80s have a baby with a 29-year-old? That 29-year-old has been his type since he was 22, 23. It doesn't change. Women's type actually evolves with time. So women tend to prefer men that are about 4 years older. That's kind of the average. It doesn't mean that it's always the case, but they're about 4 years older because women tend to go for men that are a little bit higher status, or they see a very strong potential future in that man, which is also important, right? Because you want to bet on the outcome. But, and it's a big but, women's types evolve with time. And there's a really interesting sex statistic. Do you guys want to hear a sex statistic?
Shoot.
This is gonna make for a really good clip, and you guys are like, okay, here's an interesting statistic. Women basically own the entire sexual domain if you look at the large data, and the reason for it is women have the sex they want, and men have the sex they can get. And the evidence of it is very interesting because a woman's type tends to be consistent with age. So the older a woman gets, the more she's attracted to men that are roughly her age or a little bit older. The older a man gets, his attraction for women stays about the same. But most of the heterosexual sex that's happening, like almost all of it, is between people roughly the same age. So who's having the sex they want?
Women.
It's the women.
Yeah.
The girls are just like, math, not computing.
That's interesting.
That's a discrimination thing, right? Like you don't talk about, that's a discrimination thing, right? Like statistically, women are having the sex they want because they're having sex with men roughly their age. That's what the data says. And men are having the sex they can get because they're having sex with people roughly their age.
That's really interesting. And that kind of also plugs into the statistics that high-value men tend to get a lot bigger part of the pie than men who are not very high status. And it doesn't really matter what your age. I mean, yeah, of course, if you get 60, 70, then probably it goes down. But if you're still like 30, 40, 50 and you're looking good, then...
Let's talk about that value share thing. You're talking about a bigger piece of the pie, right?
Yeah.
An interesting question. There's some interesting studies about birth control. And the question I would ask, so here's a question for you girls. Birth control, right? Who did it benefit more, men or women?
Men.
Of course men. Okay, so why did birth control benefit men more than women?
Because I personally dislike everything, like the pills, and it's like not good for our health. But we are the ones who have to protect our bodies, because like we are the ones who are going to suffer. Either
it's like
either you're going to be single mom or you're going to have an abortion, or it's
yeah, but you can abstain. Like it's not like you have to suffer. You can abstain.
You choose who you sleep with.
You basically choose who has access to you, right? So ultimately.
Yeah, but even if you are in a relationship like a few years, it doesn't mean you are ready to have a baby. So
okay, but isn't it your goal to get a commitment out of that relationship? So if there is a procreation event, let's say that you have security for that baby.
I don't know. I think it's like really planned these times. It's even if I'm like 100% sure I love this person, I want to have a baby with him, but it's still like I would like to travel and enjoy the time together.
So you're saying the birth control is men benefit more from it, of course, because men don't have to suffer the consequences of taking the birth control. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's the argument. Okay, Alex,
I agree with that because birth control, we women have to take it, and all the side effects and everything that comes with that.
It's
the
crazy,
guy doesn't have to
actually,
feel that. The guy doesn't have to feel the hormonal changes or whatever more else. Like the woman has to go through all of those things.
Okay, that's a fine argument. What do you think, Jaak? Do you think the birth control benefits more men or more women?
I would say in a way it benefits both, but women, I have to say, it benefits more in terms of like really serious consequences, because the woman actually can have control over who she will have a baby with, or if she will have a baby at all with somebody. And if if a woman gets pregnant, then the guy is basically hooked until the child is at least full age.
Is he hooked?
In my opinion, yes.
It depends on the man.
You can be a bad father and not take responsibility. Yes,
but it's not only women. Men also have they can also avoid women getting pregnant, but men more of the time don't want to use the things.
And that's also where the women can take responsibility. Say then it's no. then it's a no-go. I know quite a few people who have had sex and the guy didn't want to use condoms and she was okay with that, and they got a baby, and of course the father said, bye-bye, I'm not going to take care of that child. Who's to blame, or whose responsibility is it?
That man is a hero. I'm just kidding. I'm messing with you. So you guys pertain, all three of you agree that women benefit more from birth control, right? I'm going to give you guys some statistics, and I want to see what your reactions to these statistics, right? So the birth control pill got invented around the 1950s, okay? And so since that time, there's been quite a lot of data tracking people's patterns on relationships and sex and other things, okay? Since the 1950s, the percentage of women who enter marriage as virgins has consistently declined to about 4% today. About 1 in 25 women today are still married off as virgins. Back in the 1950s, before the birth control pill became proliferated publicly, something like 90% of women married as virgins. You guys are following this, right? Mm-hmm. Does that stat make sense? That less women marry as virgins because of the birth control pill. Does that stat make sense?
I don't think it's only because of the birth control.
Well, it's maybe not, but
it's like all this there's like sexual freedom and everything.
But that happened because of the birth control pill. Sexual freedom didn't happen in spite of or parallel to the birth control pill. Sexual freedom happened because of the birth control pill, because the consequences of sex became way less than if you were to, get knocked up in the 1940s. Your life is basically over, right? So, and yes, of course, people's attitudes change with the technology and birth control pill being a technology. So, but is anybody surprised that there are fewer female virgin brides than there were in the 1940s? Or is anybody surprised by that?
No, not really.
Okay.
But I think also it's the mentality, you don't have to marry the first guy you sleep with. The mentality has changed.
100% because of the birth control pill.
So you're diminishing your risks by using the pill.
Right. So what Lilian said is very powerful. She said that you don't have to marry the first guy you sleep with. So there's less consequence for your choice. That's the way you're saying it. So there's less consequence for your choice. Well, let's talk about the outcome of that. So let's look at the same data from the 1950s onward. Are you guys ready for a truth bomb? The stick of shame is about to light up here. Check it out. Since the same time that the birth control pill became proliferated, number and percentage of virgin bride females has significantly dropped. The number of male virgins getting married has significantly increased at that time. I'll say that one more time. Since the 1950s, since the birth control pill and all the sexual freedom that you talk about, right? There are more males being married off as virgins even today.
Would be interesting to know what's behind it.
Well, let's evaluate. Girls, what do you guys think? Why do you think that is? That's interesting, right? There are fewer female virgins getting married, but more male virgins getting married. Alex, what do you think?
Well, thinking of all the previous things that we have talked about, then probably because women have a choice who they're gonna let. That's the first thing. But the other thing is also that men might not be on some certain level or that kind of thing to actually get a woman.
Okay. So who chooses who gets to have sex, men or women?
Of course, women.
Okay. So you're getting there. You're understanding what that data says, right?
Yeah.
Jaak, you understand what that data might say?
Yeah.
We have sexual freedom now, says Lilian. Look at us. All these men are out there enjoying the benefits of all that freedom from the birth control pill, and yet more men getting married are virgins than were in the 40s.
Yeah, I mean, from the men's side, I would say might be a part of the statistics or the reason, because women have control over who they're going to have a baby with.
Okay.
The guys, might want to not risk getting into.
So guys are turning down sex because they don't want to be dads. All these virgin guys are like, no, thank you, not for me.
Yeah, that might be like maybe just a few out of 1,000.
That's a reach. That is 0 out of 1,000. I have data to back it up. You know that married women stop looking at other men with like romantic notions, like they don't notice attractive men anymore when they're married. Generally speaking, when women are in love, they only see one guy. But statistically, when men are in love, they still notice beautiful women around them.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't think all these guys are turning it down. Lilian, what do you think is going on? You
Well-
were the one that said we have all this benefit for men and sexual freedom.
Maybe because okay, women have like different types, but like they all still want like a good-looking, wealthy, hardworking guy.
Do you think they're all
So they're-
banging? Do you think they're banging the wealthy, hardworking guys?
No, but
Is that it's like, you know what? Now that I
maybe
can
the-
bang anyone,
maybe
I'll bang
the-
the wealthy, hardworking
maybe
guy.
the young guys just focus on getting the wealthy guy or something. They're like focusing on work or something to.
I'm so
build
focused
up-
on work.
build
I'm
up,
sorry.
yeah.
I'm gonna marry myself. I'm gonna be a virgin as a man. I'm just too focused on work.
I think what's going
All
on.
these hardworking virgin men are just like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want to get anyone pregnant. I'm just focusing on work. Too busy for it.
I think what's going on is these guys, these virgin guys, are the low income bracket guys, and they are just marrying the women who, how to say, are on their
You really think they're low
last
income?
legs in terms of.
You really think they're low income guys? So you think that these guys that aren't getting laid are low income guys, and then the women marry the low income guys? That's what you think? Completely I call bullshit.
No, what I'm saying is that that these guys are marrying the women who have been having hot girl summers, and now they are at the age where, you know.
But why are
it's
these
like-
guys not having the sex? Like these guys, like
Because
more,
they
there are
can't.
more male
Nobody
virgins
wants
now
them.
than in the 40s.
Because nobody wants them.
Okay, but then they want it. But then the women want to marry them because they're poor.
Because it's their last, how to say, last option. Nobody else wants them.
Wow, man, that's a stretch.
Might be.
Let's just talk about what's really happening.
Go ahead.
I've actually noticed it with the young guys that I know, that, you know, when I was like at that age or younger, and the guys were more out there than they are now. I don't know the reason behind it, but I've noticed it. Like they're not like hunting girls so much, or
Yeah, I have some bad news about that. They're just not hunting you, because you are seeing yourself as the target when you're in your 20s. That's what
no. I wasn't even talking about me. I'm like these guys I'm talking about. They wouldn't hunt me anyway. You know, I'm like. They're related to me, you know. That's why I just.
You never know in Estonia, man. I don't know.
I mean, like that. I wouldn't be the target anyway, you know. But I've noticed like some people, you know, like are almost 30 and they haven't even. I'm not sure if they've had sex or not, but they're like they haven't had a relationship that I know.
Are they attractive guys?
No, I think okay, yeah.
Here's what's really happening, guys. Let's look at the data for a second here. So we have more men that are marrying as virgins, right? So basically what it's saying is that women are having more sex than ever. We know this. Like we have the data on this to show that fewer females are marrying off as virgins, so they're having more sex. That's what's happening in the marketplace, right? But also we're seeing that fewer men are having sex. So there's more sex, more women are having sex, but fewer men are having sex. So who's getting all the sex?
Women.
Huh?
Women.
Yeah, but from where? Where are they getting it from? There's fewer men having sex, but there's more sex.
From a certain, not
Right.
a group of guys. But
So a
yeah.
certain cohort of men, because of the birth control pill, we see the data that a certain cohort of men is vastly overrepresented in the sexual marketplace, right? And why is that? So previously, if a woman sees a guy that she finds attractive, she wants to get it on, she might think like, well, no, there's really big consequences. There's societal prejudice that, you know, if I get knocked up, things are going to go bad for me. There's societal prejudice if I don't marry myself off as a virgin. There's all these consequences, right? And so what the pill did is it takes all the consequences away from the decisions of sex, okay? It takes the consequences away. And with no consequences, women are now choosing to have sex with a small number of men. And you're like, well, maybe, you know, the hardworking guys aren't getting, you know, they're too busy working, not getting laid. Like, no, it's not that. It's that women are now no longer choosing their sexual partners based on future market value. They're choosing it on present market value. And what's going to dictate present market value from a man? Height, muscular distribution. The number one thing is the shoulder to waist ratio, etc. So we see statistically that women are just picking genetically better men. That's all that's happening. That's all that's happening. So you're like, so has the birth control pill really benefited men? And it's like, yes, it's definitely benefited the top 5 to 10% of men. And it's completely locked out. Like, what is the data now? 1 out of 3 men under 30 haven't had sex in a year.
1 out of 3.
1 out of 3 are completely removed from the sexual marketplace. They're not even statistically sexually active. And do you think it's by choice?
No, definitely no.
So I actually looked into the data. I'm like, so if 1 out of 3 men under 30 are not sexually active, is it by choice or not? Okay? And here's what I found. Women, like you can measure a woman's socio-sexual index, meaning you can measure a woman's promiscuity and sex drive. You can directly measure how open sexually a woman is by the number of partners she's had in the last year. Like it consistently, the numbers of how many sex partners she's had in the last year lines up significantly statistically with her own views on how much sex she wants to have. Okay? For men, how much sex they want to have has no correlation to how many partners they had last year.
Excluding the 5 to 10%.
Just think about it again, right? For men, there's no connection between how much sex they want to have and how much sex they actually had.
For most of them, yeah.
For most of the men.
Yeah.
Like, so even the ones that had no sex still wanted all the sex. Women just got whatever they wanted, but for men it wasn't like that. So here's an interesting argument with the birth control pill, is you have this data that's clearly showing all it's done is change women's preference for the top 5 to 10% of men.
Yeah, because they're not considering the long-term, how to say, important aspects.
Right. And so today, and so if you look at like 30, 40 years, let's go to 1930s, 1940s, right? What's the message that men were given in the 30s and 40s? Like what was the lessons that other men were teaching men in the 30s and 40s? Like were they saying, go to the gym and build muscle in the 30s and 40s?
No.
They weren't. And you see the world's strongest men back then was like a fat guy. They were saying, get a good job, focus on your career, go to school, build your future, blah, blah, blah. And now you have this hyper-masculine man movement, like you have the Tates and everything. And what are they telling guys to do? What's the number one thing they say?
Physique.
Yeah, go to the gym, get muscles. So even the hyper-masculine movement has moved towards optimizing for short-term mating strategies.
It's supporting it.
Well, it's not just supporting it, it's just calling out the truth. They're saying like, hey, if you're not that dude that's fit and buff and in shape, whatever, you're going to get nothing from women. Mm-hmm. So even the men that men follow have shifted their strategies to short-term mating strategies.
Yeah, I mean, guys are problem solvers, so they
right.
solve the problem.
But here's the thing, and everybody blames those hyper-masculine guys for teaching men to shift their behavior towards short-term mating strategies, but it's actually a response. Because we see from the data that women have shifted their strategies to short-term mating strategies on the whole. Make sense? Why are you guys so shocked?
It doesn't make sense.
Is this data shocking to you? Or are you uncomfortable with this information?
No, I'm just, I was thinking about like myself. So I'm not like into like very big gym guys or something. So it's, maybe I just don't fit in the data.
I think you fit into the data perfectly, but in a different way. In a different way. Because you picked your, I guess now, ex-partner, right? Did you pick him on specific metrics? Was he wealthy?
A little.
A little? Like just a little?
Well,
Would you have been with him if he was poor?
Compared to who?
Compared to the average man that's driving a bus for work?
Yeah, bus I don't do.
Well, interesting, right? Whoa, okay, interesting.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Are you though?
I could do, but it's like so hot outside right now.
So you wouldn't marry a bus driver?
It's so funny when you ask a concrete question like that from women. They start playing politics, like jiggling, wiggling around, not giving a straight answer.
I could.
And that's actually often.
I could use a bus, but it's like with my logistics, it's just not making sense. Where I have to take my kid, where I have to go myself. It's just doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Remember my friend in Dubai who's 19 and got a penthouse and a Porsche just because some guy was like, I'm out of town, use my penthouse and Porsche. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to take the bus. Did you take the bus at 19?
No.
I was a bus warrior. Like, it's like nobody was giving me a Porsche and a penthouse.
I was riding an old Soviet motorcycle when I was 19.
All right, this is going into a weird direction.
Yeah, but no Porsche.
Let's do one more. Here's an interesting question for you guys. So in Estonia, women don't get married. They tend to live with their partners long term, etc. Do you think that has and if you're not getting married, that means you're not taking your partner's last name either? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Because you're like, why would you take the last name of somebody if you're not really married to them? Alex, you're planning to get married. Do you plan to take your boyfriend's or your fiance's? Do you plan to take his last name?
There are probably yes, but I do think I will keep my own name as well.
So you want to
in
hyphenate?
Estonia,
Yeah.
Okay.
That's very popular in Estonia.
When you were married, did your wife take your last name?
I was not married.
Oh, right. You were just.
Yeah, we were in the process of getting married. It would have been hyphened, yeah.
Would have been hyphenated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lilian, you were living together. Would you actually ever get married? Like if your ex-boyfriend, before, you guys, if you were together a couple of years, he was like, let's just get married. Would you have said yes to that?
Probably.
Would you have taken his last name?
I'm not sure. I didn't like his last name.
Interesting.
Didn't sound good. It's really. Even our daughter has my name.
Ah, you mean your father's name?
Yeah, my father's name. Yeah.
Let's talk. So.
Yeah, I wanted to add something.
Yeah.
The only reason why I had agreed with the hyphenation was I was a simp back then.
Would you agree to it now?
No.
So I told my wife, you're taking my last name, and my wife's got a beautiful last name. It's very known in Estonia. Her dad's a very well-known and respected man. And I'm like, no, you're gonna take my weird, long-ass last name that you can't even spell, and you're gonna proudly display it. I made it a point that my wife was gonna take my last name because I had a mentor in business, and he told me, he's like, when you get married, make sure your wife takes your last name. That's what he told me. And I was young and I said, okay. So for whatever reason, I told my wife before we got married, you're going to take my last name. And she was like, okay, fine. Do you think, and you said that previously, you said that now if you were to get married, your wife would take your last name. Why do you feel that way?
Because it's a test for me also.
What kind of test specifically?
If she doesn't want to take my last name, it means that she doesn't trust me as a leader, or the relationship is not worth it, actually.
Do you girls believe that's true or not?
No.
No, I don't think as well.
Because why I would keep two names is because obviously I just feel the connection to my family more if I have also my family name or my father's name. But I could have said that, hey, you're going to take my family last name. But I wasn't like that. I said, of course, I want your name as well because I want the future together with you. But I want to keep my own name as well if that's okay. And that's okay.
So here we have a gentleman that says it's important for me that my wife takes my last name because I want to be the leader and she needs to acquiesce to my leadership, or I'd like her to acquiesce to my leadership. And then we have ladies that say, well, I'd kind of like my family name to be connected as well because I have connection back to my family also, right? Do you guys want to hear the data about name changes for marriage? Do you think potentially that changing your last name could impact the outcome of the marriage?
I'm sure it does.
Depends on the reasons.
Okay, so you think it does, okay.
Depends on the reasons. Like if I'm just stubborn, I'm saying, hey, no, I don't want your name. You take my name. Obviously that's not a good start.
I'm not asking the reasons. We're going to look at what the data says, right? And I'm not saying that it says anything because you don't know, right? Not yet anyways. But my question is, do you think that, statistically speaking, that wives who take their husband's last name over wives who do not, or even compared to wives who hyphenate, do you think there's any different statistical outcomes to that marriage?
So probably the one who takes, the marriage is longer and
probably, yeah.
Probably
okay,
more
so
lasting.
you think...
I'm just thinking,
okay.
Not because of my own opinion, I thought it's the outcome.
Do you think that there's any this different outcome to the marriage potentially if the wife takes the husband's last name?
Potentially, yeah, then.
Why?
Well, as there was the leadership thing that I want to be the leader, I want my wife to actually be with my leadership and everything, then maybe men won't feel that strong of a leader then if their woman won't take their last name or something like that.
So you think if a woman doesn't take the last name, it's the man that feels like less of a leader, and that will outcome the marriage negatively?
Well, yeah.
Okay, but it's women that end 80% of marriages. 90% of marriages are ended by women if the woman's college educated. So it's not the men that are ending the relationship saying, I don't feel like a leader, I'm out of here. It's the women that are ending the relationship. So if a woman ends the relationship with a man, and you told us that earlier yourself, that you left the relationship because you didn't think the guy was going to be able to lead you to where you want to go. Because he wasn't growing. You outgrew him.
Yeah, I outgrew him, but also you can see potential, but he's not using potential.
Right.
That's...
Which is a nice way of saying I don't believe in your leadership.
Yeah.
Which is if I'm going to marry you, whatever, you're going to lead me to a place I don't want to go.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
So it's so again, you're saying that, okay, so a man whose wife doesn't take his last name, he feels like less of a leader, so the marriage dissolves. But it's like, but he's not the one dissolving the marriage. It's women that dissolve marriages.
But maybe it's because he feels less of a leader, and if he starts feeling less of a leader, he will be less of a man there, maybe.
Oh,
And then
interesting.
maybe the lady will like...
Okay.
feel
So
like-
so no, but you understand what's happening. So it's like, okay, so maybe she doesn't take the last name. He feels like less of a leader, so he's not as confident in his actions. He's not as
Yeah.
brazen and
Yeah.
risk optimizing in his actions. So is the woman then, in that case, doing the man a disservice by not taking the last name because she's not giving him the best opportunity to succeed?
I wouldn't say that, but yeah, looking at the data, then yes.
Well, we haven't looked at the data yet, but I'll tell you the
Well,
data. But you see what's insinuated here. So yes, there's statistical outcome differences in whether or not a woman takes a man's last name. Women that take their man's last name, those marriages tend to last longer, be happier, and be more successful when a woman takes the husband's last name. If they hyphenate, it's exactly the same outcome as if she doesn't take the guy's name at all. So there's data on this. That's crazy data, right? Now, what actually influences whether or not a woman takes the man's last name? Do you want to hear the answer? This is crazy. Do you know what the number one influence is if a woman takes a man's last name or not? We want to take a guess?
how it sounds?
How it sounds is not number one at all. Even though I do know people with some pretty funny last names.
It's probably social status.
Do you think it's so the man's social status? You think that's what it is?
One of them, yeah. And
Okay.
financial status also.
Okay, what do you think, Lilian? What do you think would influence, if you had to guess, whether or not a woman takes her husband's last name?
Maybe how much she really actually believes into this partnership. Like, I mean, like maybe some women, like, I think it's more like if you're like it's like a working system, like she's a housewife, he's making money, and they're like having a great partnership. Like
So
to building
hang
a
on
home
second.
and
So you're
house.
saying, so now
So if
you're
the woman is-
contradicting yourself, because now you're like,
I'm-
well,
I'm just
it
thinking
depends
about
on how woman committed to the relationship. That's what you just said. And earlier you're like, it doesn't change how I'm committed to the relationship.
No, I mean, like, I don't know. Some women say, who's been married, that they had like some crisis in themselves when they changed the name. Like after they had to get used to the new name and everything.
Do you think those women married their first choice?
Well, I don't know.
If you're having a crisis about, adopting your husband's name, my question is, what are you really having a crisis with?
Selling yourself out.
Well, I would wonder, because there are definitely a lot of women that don't marry their first choice. That's 100% true. But we're not going to get into data on that. The question was the last name, and you're saying as well, maybe the woman
I'm just
doesn't
thinking.
surrender. So,
Yeah, maybe it's.
So check this out. So the number one predictor of whether or not a woman takes a husband's last
Wait,
name.
can I add something?
Yes.
Yeah. What I meant by social status and financial status is how secure the woman feels in terms of the future with this man.
Well, again, so that's
Yeah.
that's the same thing as saying it's
Yeah.
like, does a woman actually acquiesce to the relationship? Does she really surrender herself fully to the
Yes,
relationship?
exactly.
And you might say, well, no, I want to keep my family name. Well, the number one predictor of whether or not a woman takes a husband's last name is the coefficient of difference between their incomes. Meaning the more money the man makes relative to the woman, the more likely the woman is to take the man's last name.
So his income.
Now, some people, it's his income, right? Basically, the higher woman's income, the less likely she is to take the husband's last name. But it's not an absolute highest, it's the relative highest compared to him. Now, some people you're gonna approach this in two ways. You can look at this from a scarcity standpoint, you can look at it from an abundance standpoint. The scarcity standpoint would be like, oh, poor desperate women have to give up their name to the husband, whatever. The abundance standpoint would be like, if a man is truly, really successful, you know what I mean? Like, my wife will never catch me an income. And she was making 150 grand before I retired her. She will never catch me an income, right? Because, grew a business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not a scarcity thing, like I have to keep this woman down or a man has to keep a woman down. It's an abundance thing. Like if a man becomes successful enough, right, at some point, and maybe the woman's really successful too, that's great. But if there's a disparity in income between them, that's what predicts whether or not the woman takes the man's last name. So women, literally, statistically speaking, this is just data, acquiesce to a man's status. So if a woman doesn't take your last name, statistically, I'm not saying this is true for you or true for you, but statistically, if a woman doesn't take a man's last name, it's because she's not acquiescing to his social status. Now, go
Or
ahead.
maybe the woman just maybe she's even not not income wise, but like mentally, she's like more like career oriented or something. So she wants to build her own name, or like the mentality is also different.
Right.
That she has like some dreams that she wants to go somewhere. She's not just like, okay, I'm gonna stay a housewife.
Let's rearrange that. So she's basically putting her dreams ahead of the interests of the marriage, statistically speaking. Because
yeah, but she
statistically
doesn't do
speaking,
it like on purpose.
well, we know that, but actually she does it inherently, the same way that women don't on purpose sleep with the top 5% of men, but all the women sleep with the top 5% of men. It's a biological drive. It's a response mechanism. It's like I'm not sitting there thinking like,
It's
okay,
the chemistry.
it's the chemistry, as you call it, right? It's literally the chemistry in here. So it's like, well, I'm not intentionally,
but I think it's for some couples it works out, It's like
everything works out for some couples, but that's not an argument. I'm giving you just data.
Yes, so I think some guys are like perfectly fine with it as well.
What kind of men are perfectly fine with it, Jaak? If a woman refuses to take your last name, are you fine with that right now? If you marry a woman, she's like, I'm not taking your name.
He was before.
Well, he was before. Did you feel like that's the man you wanted to be in that relationship?
No, like I said, simps would be fine.
But you're saying you were a simp?
Yeah.
So you changed your mind on that now? Because previously you said I'm fine with it, but now you changed your mind.
Yes.
Why? What changed that?
Because, like I said, it's a stress test for the relationship. And if the woman doesn't want to, if she doesn't trust me enough for me to be the leader in the relationship, then it's not going to work because it's biological. She will lose that so-called chemistry after a while, and then it's just going to fall apart. It's just wasting my time.
Here's an interesting statistic as well, guys. So we know that a woman's propensity to take her husband's last name has to do with the man's social status and wealth. And we know that women that take their husband's last name significantly outperform women in marriages who do not take their husband's last name or who hyphenate. Those are all statistical truths, right? One of the reasons that a woman would take a husband's last name, and you actually made a really good point. It's like, well, maybe a woman has a career, blah, 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 right? And my mom never took my dad's last name, and they divorced, and my mom actually out-earned my dad. And by the way, like, I saw from a teenager's eyes what it looked like when a woman out-earns a man, because guess who's calling the shots about where we go for vacation?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
It's like, do you want to be in a relationship with a man where you have to call the shots of where you go to vacation because you're paying most of it? Is that an ideal relationship for you as a woman?
No.
You have to think about that. Why'd you have to think about that?
No.
No, that's a really interesting question because a lot of women are like, well, I'm going to be the bitch. I'm going to pay for all that. It's like, really, like you want to be with a man and have his children if you don't take his last name and you're the one that's paying and choosing the vacation spots because you're paying for the vacations. Like, it sounds to me like you're just the husband.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think women feel the same. They don't want, because it's the same thing that men lose confidence
Sure.
when they lose money. So it's like. When
and you want a man with confidence, right?
Yeah, and he's not like manly and confident, so it starts to bother women as well.
Okay.
So it's like a problem for women if they make more money than their husband.
There's more chemistry if the man makes more money.
Here's we're going to talk about money. We get some money posters about this. Here's what's interesting though. So one of the reasons that a woman takes the husband's last name is because it creates negative social repercussions for the woman to leave the union. Because if a woman gets divorced, she now has her ex-husband's name. And so how are other men going to perceive her if she's carrying the name of another man? Mm. Are they going to perceive that woman similarly, more positively, or more negatively? What do you think?
Negatively.
Negatively, yeah. The answer men perceive women that carry their partner's ex-husband's or ex-partner's last name as more negatively in the sexual marketplace. And you understand why. Because it's like now you're getting a woman that's carrying another man's name attached to her. So as a man, you understand that can impact your honor. And women might not understand what that means. Like, that's insecure. It's like, well, fuck yeah, it's insecure. But you know what? Like, we have biological wiring that treats us a certain way. So it's like, if that woman leaves the union and she's carrying another man's name, that woman's market value is negatively perceived by other men, and men implicitly know this. So it's like one of the reasons you actually do take your husband's name is for the negative repercussions. You're showing him that I'm willing to take a social risk for you. What is that social risk? The social risk is the acquiescence of some of my accolades in my previous career. And the social risk is that it makes me less valuable if I leave this union. And there's 80% of women leaving unions, right? So watch this. So let's talk about negative repercussions. So you have a woman in the West doesn't take her husband's last name, right? So she's not acquiescing to that. And then later on, that woman can leave that union and she has less negative repercussions on her because she still has her original name and everything. But if you're married in the West and the woman leaves the union, she's still taking half the guy's money. So what does she get? Because are there negative repercussions for men due to divorce? Are there negative repercussions for men due to divorce? The answer is absolutely yes. It's women that end the relationships. Men post-divorce tend to be significantly more depressed. Like alcoholism amongst divorced men is way higher. By the way, it's not higher amongst divorced women. There's other scientific reasons for it. Women don't tend to externalize depression. Men do. So men tend to go to the drink. So it's like the divorced guys that get really, really depressed. The woman takes the assets and she doesn't have the negative consequences of leaving with his name. So I believe that what that mentor was telling me is correct, is if a woman chooses to not take your name at marriage, it's not just oh, I'm connected to my family, whatever. It's a lack of acquiescence to the relationship. Now, my question would be so let's say I'm a guy and I'm driving a bus. Like I'm just a bus driver, I'm a regular old dude making $30,000 a year. And if I'm making $30,000 a year as a regular dude, am I taking my wife on vacations? No. People that make $30K a year, they can't afford vacations. You know, like we all know people like that. We probably grew up like that, where you got that one family vacation a year, like, hey, this year we're going to go to Mexico. Can we go there? No, we're just here to look around this time, but next time we come, we can do all this other fun stuff that costs money. Who can relate to that, right? Because usually it's like you're just taking like the economy version of the vacation once a year. So the wife's like, yeah, you know, I'm not going to take his last name. Now, transform that bus driver into something else. Let's transform that bus driver into an anesthesiologist that runs his own unit, makes $1 million a year. And now that guy making $1 million a year is like, yeah, I want you to take my last name when we get married. Is the woman still going to say no? Legit question. Sorry, I don't want your last name. Well, then I'm going to take my anesthesiology career and money and go somewhere else. Are you willing to face the consequences of that risk?
Well, depending on the position of the woman.
Right, but in general, you're right, because the woman might be like, hey, I'm a badass CEO myself, I don't need to do this. That's true. And that woman's going to have a damn hard time finding a man that's going to be, because you understand that the respect factor is there, right? But if you as a chick, you're like, hey, the guy makes $1 million a year, right? Like he's a really, really successful guy, like he can really make it happen. He's connected, whatever, he's like, maybe he's a famous guy, maybe he's a famous athlete, like, hey, Greta, you know, the Estonian chick, what's her name, that married the Richard guy, the football player? Griffin. She took the last name, and she had a career before him as well. So that's that guy, and he's like, take my last name, and you're like, what are you going to say? You're going to say no? And lose that guy, or would you take that risk? Legitimate question.
Depends. Because money, for me, for an example, personally, money is not the only thing that makes me want to be with the person. If there's no chemistry there, if there's no, I'm not getting the safety or anything, like money is not the only thing that can give you safety. Like for an example, if the guy is running around, like you're not with him at all, you don't have like any of your personal time together.
Oh, no. I'm not saying that this guy is a bad partner. That's a different, like, oh, he's a bad partner. Yeah, look, I'm not going to acquiesce to a bad partner. No. Like you're just sidetracking the argument. You're like, well, if the guy's not a good partner, I won't take his last name. Yeah, no shit, you're not going to acquiesce the guy's not a great partner. But I'm saying he's a great partner.
Yeah, if he's super and everything,
if
there's more to it than money, then if I feel secure, of course, then because I trust him, his leadership.
Yeah, but you just said that you won't take the last name. You said you're going to hyphenate, which has no statistical different outcomes than not taking the last name at all.
Because I have a personal reason to it.
Okay, so if he tells you that, hey, that's a red line I'm drawing, I'm not going to accept that.
If everything else is good, then I don't see a reason. And I'm not talking money-wise right now.
I understand that. Yeah, but listen, you're also being a little bit hypocritical here, because I know your boyfriend, fiance, and I know where he works, and I know he's got a very bright future for himself, regardless of where he works. He's got a bright future.
Yeah.
The guy's like, it's not like you're betting against his future if you're saying this man could be the potential future father of my children one day.
Yeah.
You're not betting against his future, right? But if he comes to you and says, hey, if you're not taking my last name, I can't proceed with this union, what do you do? Do you then dissolve the relationship? Like, well, sorry.
No.
So then you're like, what? I'll take your last name?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But it's because right now, the money-wise, it is a great potential future that can be money-wise right now. But as everything else is on a very good level, everything is good, I feel secure in everything. That's why I would be okay with that.
You're trusting his leadership.
Exactly.
Okay, so let me come back to the original question. If a woman doesn't take the husband's last name, what does it mean?
They don't trust him.
Uh-huh. They don't trust his leadership. Did I change your mind about this a little bit?
Maybe. I'm not like that I would never do it 100%. I just think it's maybe as the marriage is not so popular in Estonia, changing the name is not as well. But I have friends who think it's really important to have the family, that everyone shares the same name. Like my friend is in a long relationship. They have kids, and she wants to get married just because she would share the name with her kids and the partner. So it's like there's like a different thinking.
It's not different thinking. I think it all comes back to leadership. It's like she wants to
Who's the leader in that relationship?
The guy.
Do you have any friends personally that the woman is the leader in the relationship?
Yeah.
You do?
Maybe.
People that you actually associate with? Because my guess is most of your friends, here's my guess, I might be wrong. My guess is most of your friends are probably models or former models.
No.
No?
No.
So your friends are like fat and ugly.
No, but they're not supermodels. I mean, like, they're not like, they don't have modeling careers.
I'm gonna guess.
They're
I'm gonna
good
guess.
looking,
I'm gonna
but
guess all your friends are very beautiful. That's my guess. I'm gonna say it. I think all your friends. I don't know any of your friends, but I would bet money they're all really beautiful women. Is it or not?
Yeah, it's true.
So your friends are all very beautiful women. And by the way, this is an educated guess, right? Because like think about it too. Like there's that saying, the birds of feather flock together. Men tend to spend time with men roughly of the same social status as themselves. Just like women tend to spend time with women that are roughly the same look status as themselves. That's true. Like, I remember in school, all the beautiful girls were friends with the beautiful girls. And the ugly girls were ostracized from the groups. And if you were ostracized, you just learned where you were, by the way. But it's just like how it was, right? And all the guys of high status, they would hang out with each other, like whatever group they belonged to. And guys like me that were not high status in school, we kind of were in the peripheral. Like, we had the, like kids will arrange themselves based on their ranking. Women according to looks, guys according to social status. Like that's how we arrange ourselves.
But the looks change. Like
right, but
many good-looking people weren't good-looking when they were in high school.
100% the looks changed, but they didn't get into those relationships in their 40s. They got into those relationships in their 20s.
Yeah.
So they were at peak market value or somewhere close to it because they have kids and long-term relationships and they're still together with their partners, right? For many, many years. So these beautiful women, and you're saying, well, my friend is very beautiful, and now she wants to take her husband's last name because, the kids and everybody in the family has the same last name. So don't these beautiful women crave to, and they're high-value women, to acquiesce themselves to the leadership of the man?
Yeah, probably.
It's less fun when you have not stupid people. When you have really stupid to argue, like, well, no, actually, maybe, yeah. But here's an interesting thing. And I think I'm going to close out on this one today. It's kind of interesting. Like, when I go on these podcasts, like in London, and you meet these like mid-30s single chicks, and I'm talking like lifelong single mid-30s. Like they might have kids, but they've never even been in a long-term relationship, or they've been in a situationship that produced a child or something like that. Very different culturally, right? Because I personally, I don't know any divorced people. Like I'm talking about like for my close friends, like I have 4 or 5 guys I'm really close friends with. All are married with families. Like I don't know divorced people. Isn't that interesting? And then they tell me in England, like, oh, everybody gets divorced. I'm like, that's not been my experience. I also don't know any guys that are like financially can't afford to do what they want to do. I don't know guys like that. Meaning like in my friends group, all my friends are just fucking rich. And it's like, and I think there's a natural tendency towards that when you kind of hang around people like yourself. You know what I mean? So it's like when you think about like, oh, all my friends are, taking their husband's last name. And it's not like one of your friends. Like, I bet you that most of your friends fit in the one category, which is like they have a long-term partner, they have kids with that long-term partner. Maybe, they were together. Average marriage lasts 8 years, by the way. So they probably made it past that 8-year mark, right? And that's probably your experience in all your friends group. That would be my guess.
Are they happy in their relationships?
Do you want to know the stats on marital happiness?
Go ahead.
There is some very strong, this will be some good clips for you guys if you want to know. There are extremely strong predictive mechanisms for who's happy in a marriage. There's also very strong, and by the way, happiness in a marriage and unhappiness in a marriage are not the same thing, meaning that they're not linear. You can be happy and also have a degree of unhappiness. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. You can be happy and have a degree of unhappiness as well. So they're not mutually exclusive, which is interesting. But the number one predictor of unhappiness in a marriage is if the woman brings children from a previous marriage into the relationship.
Really?
Yeah,
I
can see that.
By the way, so if the woman brings children into the relationship, that's the number one predictor, and it's not of the man's unhappiness, by the way. It's the number one predictor of the woman's unhappiness. It's interesting.
That's really
And
interesting.
I'm going to tell you why I think that is. That's a really interesting statistic. So if a woman brings a child from a prior relationship into a marriage, it predicts the woman's unhappiness. And by the way, why are we measuring the woman's unhappiness here? You know why? Because who ends marriages? Women end marriages. So measuring the woman's unhappiness has a much stronger predictive outcome on what the outcome of the marriage will be. Men will actually stay longer in unhappy marriages. Not surprising when you look at the data. So if a woman brings a child into the relationship, it's the number one predictor that she'll be unhappy herself in that relationship. And I think I know why and might be wrong. I think it's because that man is not the woman's first choice.
I think it's maybe because she still wants to have like a perfect family. Like she
Which is
was-
exactly what I just said.
Yeah.
But you know, but the guy, even if she can love this guy more than the previous one, but the guy and his child are not connected as father and daughter, and that's like taking her. Like,
Yeah, but
giving her some
but we're
stress.
talking about the woman's happiness with the marriage, not the woman's happiness with the family. These are different dynamics. Like the marriage, what you said is like, well, she wants to have a perfect family, but now she's bringing a child into the family. Well, she's the one bringing the child.
Yeah, but
She's the one bringing the child.
maybe she expects like this new husband to take this child as his own, but maybe he doesn't.
Do you think it's a reasonable expectation
I
for a
don't
man
know.
to take a
I
child
don't know. I
that's
was
not
just
his own?
thinking.
Well, I'll give you the stats on that. You want to know the data on that? The data on that's very clear. Men actually treat kids that look like themselves better than kids that don't look like them, even within their own families. So I have 4 kids. I'm statistically more likely to treat the kids that look more like me better than the kids that look less like me. And this is, again, across all different cultures. Isn't that crazy?
I can attest to that.
Really?
From personal experience.
Tell me.
Yeah, I mean, the mother of my child has 3 kids from before.
Okay.
And before my son was born, I thought, okay, this is what fatherhood is. And then when my own son was born, I could start seeing the differences. I was, how I was treating her kids, or how I was, what's the word now? Yeah, basically how I was treating them, it changed when I became a father myself.
So you treated your kid better than the other kids?
Yeah, I mean, I felt I have a deeper connection with my own child.
Well, obviously.
Yeah, a lot deeper.
It's your child.
Yes.
So the number one predictor of an unhappy woman in a marriage is, then we're talking about number one is if she brings a child into the marriage that's not the man's child. That's
What
that's
about
the
if
top
he
predictor.
brings a child?
Zero impact on the happiness of the
Yeah.
woman in the marriage. Zero impact on the happiness of the woman in the marriage if a man brings
That's very
children into the marriage, not his
interesting.
kids. Huh?
It's very interesting because I've seen like opposite kind of
I'm
relationships.
just giving you data. Zero impact on that whatsoever. Another predictor of a woman's unhappiness in a marriage, and this is, again, going back to data, is if she's had 10 or more sexual partners. Once, like the number one drop in happiness for women is when she goes from one partner to 2. So women coming into the marriage with 2 partners are way unhappier than women that have only had one partner before.
But if he doesn't know it,
Well, this is not predictive of whether or not he knows. This is predictive of what the woman is herself. It's how her happiness level, right?
okay.
And I actually have a theory on this as well. Again, I don't know if it's true, but it's like, why is there such a drop in a woman's happiness in a marriage if the man is like, if she's got 2 sexual partners going into the union instead of just one? That one, by the way, would probably be the guy before they got married. And I think the answer is, again, I think it's just showing that she didn't marry her first choice. Like, she's got a propensity to get married because she got married marrying with 2 partners is a pretty early time to marry. So she's got a propensity to want to have a relationship. But it might, and again, this is not every case, but in data, it might show that it's not her first choice. Because when a woman had like 4 or 5 partners and then she gets married, she's actually happier in the marriage than if she only had 2 partners.
Okay.
And that makes sense to me because now you have some variety and you make a choice. But once you get to like 10 and above, consistently those marriages will fall apart. So women bringing kids into the relationship that are not their kids significantly impacts the happiness of the woman in the marriage. Women having more than, let's say, average number of sexual partners makes the woman significantly unhappy in the marriage as well.
I think there's an extra thing I wanted to say. It's I didn't start treating her sons worse in any way, but because I have a deeper connection with my own son, I'm more invested into his future than her kids. And also probably a factor why the woman has more unhappiness is because she can feel it or see it that this guy is putting more effort and investing more into his own son than those other kids I have.
I think it's arrogant to assume that if the kids aren't yours, that you're going to invest in them like they are your kids. I think it's a stupid and arrogant assumption. And people that go, oh, my stepdad raised me really good, sure, but he is still different biologically from your own kids.
Yes. I was
Still-
raised by a stepdad also,
Right.
so yeah.
And it's like, and maybe you have a great relationship, he's a great guy, whatever, but once you have a kid, you realize there's another level that you don't know you have until you have kids.
Exactly.
And this is the marriage thing as well, right? It's like, why are the women that are marrying guys that, the woman brings the kid into the relationship? It's like, you realize very quickly that a woman's going to love her kids much more than she's ever going to love her husband. Period. And you don't know that until you have kids, because my wife was like, I'm always going to put you number one. And then now we have 4 kids. It's like, and I have to talk to her sometimes like, hey, I kind of want to be number one. It's like, she's like, I get it, but I understand there's a biological drive that the children comes first to the woman.
And then they say you have to put yourself first as well. So I think it was the same with me. You know, before kids, I was very invested in my partner. And then when I got kid, you know, I was all my time was with her, and then I was like tired and got lack of sleep and everything. Then it was like everybody tell that you have to put yourself first, you know. Then it's like it's yourself, it's the kid, and the husband drops to the last place, you know. But it happens, I think, to like most relationship. Though they say it shouldn't.
Well,
but I think when the kid comes, it works different.
So check it out. So a woman has a choice of whether or not to take her husband's last name, and that choice significantly impacts whether or not the marriage, or there's a strong correlation to the success of that marriage, right? The amount of previous partner a woman brings to the marriage significantly impacts the happiness of the woman in the marriage. Whether or not a woman brings a kid into the marriage significantly impacts the outcome of marriage. There's one more variable that significantly impacts the happiness of the marriage, and it's whether or not a woman has previously cohabitated with a different partner. So if a woman has previously lived with another man, it significantly reduces the successful outcome.
So my next marriage is going to fail.
Not necessarily.
I have all of the three.
We're talking about statistics.
Not necessarily, but,
Yeah,
but statistically speaking, these are all true outcomes, right? And so it's interesting to me to think that like the actual outcome of a marriage is statistically tied to what the woman brings with her to that marriage. Now you might say, what about a man that's had like 1,000 sexual partners? Now there are guys out there like that now because we have this Genghis Khan effect where like the sexual marketplace is so crazy skewed, right? So a guy has previous kids and a guy has 1,000 partners, he comes into the marriage. How does that impact the happiness of the woman in the marriage? And the answer is?
I wouldn't say it doesn't. You know, if your husband has been like sleeping around with everyone, or you know, maybe it's the Estonian thing, you know everyone, then it's like you go everywhere and you know all of them have been with your husband.
Well, you
then
have to make
starts to be annoying.
you probably would make that determination prior to marrying this person. Like that would be like,
yeah,
do I want to enter a
okay,
full-on union with that person?
That's true.
But for those that enter that union with that person, a man's past sexual history and having kids before has zero impact, no positive, no negative. Like zero, like statistically it's an insignificant impact on the outcome to that marriage. So what's really interesting is a man's past that he brings with him into the marriage, like once that union is formed, has no impact on the outcome of the union. But a woman's past statistically has like outcome, like statistical outcome. Isn't that crazy?
I think women also are like, if they know that other women like some guy,
Well, yes.
then they're like, okay, this has to be something,
Correct.
you know.
So,
they start to compete, you know.
Yeah, pre-selection is absolutely a number one variable. In fact, one of the things I tell guys, and this is something that is a controversial opinion that I'm sure is going to get me blown up online, especially as I'm saying it with a pimp stick, like, yes, here I am. I have this opinion, and this is the thing that I said on a podcast earlier, is that a man needs to make it a mission for a couple of years in his early 20s to go out and sleep with lots of beautiful women. Like, and make it a mission. And people get so offended by that, like, how could you say that? Like, that's a horrible purview. Like, that's not a view that you should take, you know? And I have a very good reason to tell young guys why in their early 20s they have every incentive. And I'm not saying every guy should do it. I'm just saying that you have the incentive to do it. And here's why. Is a man giving a woman his commitment, is that a gift he gives to the woman or not? Like if a man says, hey, I'm committed to you, you're the one, you're the person I'm going to have a family with, I'm going to work really, really hard to build myself and to build our family's future so that I give you the best life I can possibly give you, okay? Is it a gift for a man to give his commitment to a woman, yes or no?
A gift.
Okay, is it a gift for a woman to give her commitment to a man? Like if you're committing to your man, are you giving him a gift? Are you giving him something special if you're committing to him?
Well, nowadays, I do think that commitment is special.
Commitment, look, but are you? So your fiance, you say, hey, I'm gonna be with you, and you're my guy. Are you giving him is that a gift that you're giving him?
Yeah.
It should be. Like, isn't your commitment worth something? Should your commitment be worth something?
Yeah, of course.
Like, it should be worth something. Like, that's a gift.
If he doesn't see it as a gift, then
you
shouldn't be with him.
And I think you should see your commitment to him as a gift as well. And he should see the commitment as a gift. Like, it's a really big thing. Like, you're giving yourself to another person. Like, this is my person, you know?
This is significant. I mean,
right.
Choosing a life partner is one of the most important choices that you will do in your life.
I would argue it's the most important choice for many, many reasons. Okay, so is a man giving his commitment to you, is that a gift he's giving you? Is your man giving you his commitment? Is that a gift?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, you better see it as a gift. Like, if a man is giving you his commitment, you're like, thanks. Like, if you're not excited to get a man's commitment, you're obviously not excited about that man. Lilian, is that true?
Yeah, true.
Okay, so the question I would ask is then, like, what's that commitment worth? Like, if that guy can't get any other woman to go anywhere with him, and he's like, I'm giving you the gift of my commitment, you're like, yes, your gift has literally zero value. Like, if you're a guy and, like, you've never been with a chick and you're giving your commitment, it's like, you know, all these simps, right? And Jaak, you know what I'm talking about, these simps, like, oh, I'll treat you well, I'll do this. It's like, yes, you're offering her commitment that's completely worthless.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you really giving her? You're giving her up the option of what? Of nothing. Like, when I committed to my girlfriend who became my wife, like, I felt in my heart of hearts that I was giving her a gift. And that gift was like, yes, I'm now committed to you.
It's like with cryptocurrency. If you make your own coin, nobody buys it. There's no value.
Here's a gift of, like, my crypto coin. I'm gonna start doing that for people's birthday. I'm gonna create a crypto coin and I'm gonna give it hey, I'm giving you the Dimitri coin. Here you go. Thank you. So that's why I tell young guys, I'm like, make it a mission in your early 20s when you're single, go sleep with beautiful women. Why? Because you're gonna be able to give your future wife a gift. The gift of your commitment that's actually meaningful. And oh, by the way, if you are not good at meeting and attracting women, and you meet the woman that you really want, she's not going to be attracted to you.
Yeah. There's one more
Obviously.
thing. There's another thing also. If you get good at attracting women and basically seducing them, it increases your confidence level.
Obviously.
And this actually adds a lot of value to the relationship when you decide to settle down with somebody. Because if you're not confident in yourself, the woman can see it. She can smell it a mile away.
Well, and
it's not gonna work. I mean, the chemistry is gonna go away.
And even deeper than that, man, it's like when you meet a guy. If you're a single woman, you meet a guy. Do you want that guy to be charismatic? Like, if you're single and you're in the market for a man, and you meet you see, do you want to meet a charismatic man?
Of course.
Interesting. Do you want to meet a confident man?
Sure.
Okay. Here's a risky question. Do you want to meet a man who's charismatic, confident, and good in bed? No, I don't want him to be that. I just want to be charismatic and confident. I want him to be a terrible lover. Is that what you want?
No.
No. So you want him to be a good lover. That's true. You're not going to say it publicly, but you know it's true. So again, I tell young 20-year-old guys, it's like, when you meet your ideal woman, do you want to be charismatic when you meet her? Do you want to be confident when you meet her? Do you want to give her a good time when you meet her? Like, do you want to give her those exciting, yes, I want to do all those things. How are you going to do that if you have zero value and zero experience in anything at all? And people say, well, then you're just turning women into sluts. No, I'm not, because women then have to decide and discern which of those men are good options. And if you're not good at discerning if you're attracted to the facade that a guy puts on, but you can't read the character behind that facade, that's a you problem. That's not a he problem. So women need to learn how to discern, and men need to learn how to attract and seduce. And that's how the free market operates. And so women are like, men are jerks. Why? Because they don't commit. It's like, no, he's not a jerk for not committing. You're an idiot for not having proper boundaries.
Yeah, I also want to add something regarding seducing. There's, many different, styles of seducing. But talking about it, when you seducing should be, you do it as a man, not as a as a simp, by lying and pretending and doing all kinds of.
So what you're talking about is called status mimicking.
Yeah, exactly.
Status mimicking, which is a very standard strategy. Status mimicking in the animal kingdom happens all the time, right? Like, certain birds will take the colors of more powerful birds, whatever, just to pretend to be more powerful, right? So status mimicking is a very common mating strategy, right? And yes, women definitely fall for like women that are not good at setting boundaries. And I have a theory about that. Like, I think the reason that women fall for status mimicking, the ones that do fall for it, is because they never had a man of true value in the household. Like, if your dad is not present in your life, then you're not going to be able to tell the difference between value and status mimicking. Does that make sense? Because then you just see that, you're like, oh, that's amazing. It's like, you don't have a real character to compare it to. And I think that, like, a woman, we have a lot of research, it's like a woman and a man too, by the way, we generally want to get into a relationship that helps us relive our childhood. Like, women will be attracted to the kind of men that their fathers were. Yeah. And if there's an absentee father so it's like, we can talk about another show, but the statistics on that, like the impact of having a dad at home, are insane.
Yeah, I've heard so many stories and see patterns when it comes to this, going on Tinder dates and talking with women who are on Tinder, talking about their past relationships and their relationship to their fathers. There's like a strong, strong patterns there.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, guys, any final thoughts, Alex? What did you learn today? What's something that made you reconsider today the position that you had before? Or something that maybe made you firmer in your position and didn't make you reconsider it at all?
I do still think that I'm a bit of a unicorn when it comes to comparing to other my age people.
Literally everybody thinks that, but yes.
No, because based on all the statistics and everything as well, then when it comes to the family name and everything, then I get the point where the statistics comes from, but I do think that the reason why I would want 2 names, I have another reason for that. So I wouldn't put myself into that statistics.
Well, but you also said that if your fiance said, no, I'm going to have you take my last name,
then
you said
I
you
would
take it.
Then I would take it.
Well, see, that's different. So that's okay.
I hope he doesn't watch the show because otherwise he's gonna be like,
He's
you
here.
have
He
to.
works in this office.
Yeah. Okay.
He's gonna watch the
So
damn show.
You're gonna lose the name.
He's going to be like,
You will
Dimitri.
probably say, Dimitri said that. Alex, no. Now
Hey,
you're going to...
and you'll thank me in 10 years. How's that?
Yeah.
Do you know, by the way, do you know how many times, like, it's interesting, like, I've basically had to, like, draw the line on my wife and say, no, like, I'm not okay with this. This is what I want. And, like, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years later, my wife back to me. She's like, I'm really glad that you did that. It's really interesting. So, women do give men all these tests, right? Women do give men all these tests. And psychologists postulate the reason that women test men to see their boundaries is to see how they react to those tests, right? If the man is too weak, then he won't be able to provide a good life going forward because weak men are not generally attractive to women. And if the man overreacts emotionally to that test, he won't be a good father because children will test your boundaries. So women, I don't know if you guys have noticed it, if it's conscious to you or not. Like I asked my wife, I'm like, did you know you're testing guys? She's like, of course I know. Did you know that when you're testing guys, or is it just like you don't think about it, you just do whatever you do?
Depends. Maybe sometimes it comes like...
But do you sometimes do it intentionally, like to really test the boundaries?
Maybe.
I test the boundaries for sure intentionally because you
Really?
test them to actually see what can happen or what are the boundaries that you can't cross.
Could the
'Cause
last
I
name
think-
thing be a test also?
Well, let's see. So I test the boundaries for sure.
I think sometimes it's like when I have some question or something regarding whatever, but when I don't like the answer, I wasn't even thinking about testing, but then it was like, okay, but why? Then I started
comes
thinking,
naturally.
yeah.
When you don't like the answer, is it usually are you saying I don't like the answer because it pushes back against my beliefs, or you don't like the answer because you think it's a weak answer?
No, it depends. Sometimes it's like the way he thinks, and I understand that, wow, it's not the way I see this, or,
Have
it's
you ever
like
lost
something
attraction for a guy, like, instantly? Because the answer he gave you to some test was just, like, not good?
It doesn't have to happen consciously. It's just like that, and it's gone. It's not there anymore.
Not sure. Maybe it needs to be more than like answer to one question, but...
Thoughts? Did you pick up anything today that surprised you?
Yeah, it was actually both. I mean, both men and female are responsible for what's going on today, and I would say guys need to take more responsibility. This is where it.
Are you talking to younger self right now?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I was doing status mimicking for years when I was younger, and to be honest, I was very successful with that.
Sure.
Yeah, but it never got past a certain point. When I started like really, how to say, investing into somebody, it basically almost never worked out because I was doing status mimicking, and the female sooner or later catches on to it. So
I think it's actually. You think she catches on to it?
yeah. So
I think there's another thing happening there. I've thought through this. Can I interject on this?
let me finish.
Yeah, go
first.
ahead. Yeah.
So for guys, like for let's say 20 years younger version of myself, I would tell, work on yourself, like really work on yourself, building your financial status, your mind, and so on. And then when it's time to settle down, you have a bigger pool of women to choose from.
So I think that's what it's getting at. Like you said, oh, I was doing status mimicking and it worked. My problem with that, let's say if we call it a problem, is at some point you realize that the women that fall for that are women that fall for status mimicking.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And I'll tell you something, man. I know a royal family member. Like I'm friends with a guy that's part of a royal family, like a known royal family. And his wife was a Versace model, like full on living in Paris, signed for 4 years. You know, these are like top level models, right? Mm-hmm. And she had a lot of great stories about like, you know, she knows Leo DiCaprio, you know, because, you know, obviously like he would just show up wherever models were for Versace parties. So she had like these cool stories about the actors that would hang out with them, like De Niro would come, they were friends as well, etc. And she married like an actual prince, right? And this gal is sharp and beautiful, obviously. Like top level woman, right? Took the guy's last name. He's a prince. Forget your modeling career. You're marrying a prince. You think he's going to put up with you not taking the royal family name? Bro, you know? And I talked to her and I kind of realized something. Like, I'm like, wow, this woman would never fall for status mimicking.
But I think she has seen it like a lot.
That's why. That's why, because she's wise enough to understand. So if a guy is coming in like trying to status mimic, like there's definitely like 90% of women status mimicking will totally work. And my question is like, do you want to marry that woman? But also,
I think it's also the thing, that's why men prefer like really young girls.
Obviously.
Because they're like fool enough to believe
Of course.
everything.
Well, men want sex. Like that's not a secret.
So it's like when you get like a little bit older, you're like, you start to notice like who is who actually.
Right.
So it's like.
So guys are making you a favor actually.
In a way.
So you learn what to, you know.
But you also need boundaries so that you can learn from wisdom, not experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like wisdom is basically when you have to learn without experience.
Yeah.
Learning from experience is painful and it also has some pretty significant negative consequences. So yes, correct. Like status mimicking absolutely will work and it will meet your interests, right? But if you don't have, like, there's a thing about who you say you are and then who you really are. And, you know, when I was younger, it was the same thing. I figured out how to status mimic pretty successfully. Like really how to, you know, play, let's say, that game. And it gets pretty shallow and pretty empty. In fact, if you look at the happiness index for men who have had more sexual partners the last year are actually less happy. Which is kind of a contradictory thing because it's like you want it to happen, but then you kind of realize there's a certain emptiness to it. But I kind of purport, like, instead of trying to attract somebody through what you can do through status mimicking, which you still should learn in a way, you should really learn how to attract somebody just through who you are. You know, like when a man becomes truly successful with women, he moves from sales to marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I approve your train of thought.
Right?
Because, yeah, when I was doing this status mimicking for years, I felt empty inside.
Sure.
Yeah. There was like
I did too.
There was like no deep value in it.
No, and that actually tells you that men are programmed to love.
Yeah.
Right, Revo? Right. All right, Lilian, final thoughts. We should wrap this one. We've got good clips here.
Yeah, for me, the most surprising was the thing that, like, the women entering a relationship with a kid, that this will make them unhappy. That was like something that I didn't know before.
It doesn't mean it'll. No, it doesn't.
I don't know. It doesn't have to
unhappy. It doesn't mean It doesn't mean that it'll make them unhappy. It's just women that bring a kid into the relationship. They're the unhappiest of all the different subgroups of women, relatively speaking. Meaning that women going into relationships without a previous child are generally happier in their marriages than women that enter relationships already with a kid. Does that make sense? And again, to me, that data suggests that maybe that man is not the woman's first choice. And it's like think about it. Like, what kind of women enter a relationship when you already have a kid? Well, it's not younger women. It's obviously going to be slightly older women. True. It's obviously, and as a bit of an older woman, you kind of have to understand that, like, you're not attracting the same guys you were in your 20s. Like, let's face it, like, you're 35, right? It's a great age, but like a 35-year-old man is not the same as a 35-year-old woman. Like a 35-year-old man, can he still date 25-year-old girls? Can he?
Yeah.
Will he?
Sure.
But as a 35-year-old lady, like,
it's my luck. I've always been attracted to a bit older man.
Well, that's
so it's fine.
That's fine. But it's true, right? But it's true. Like a 35-year-old guy in the marketplace is still dating 25-year-old chicks, and like a 35-year-old lady, like you're probably, if you settle down again, right? The guy will be much older. Like he'll He won't be 39 or 40 because 39, 40, like you're 40. Are you looking for a 35-year-old lady or?
Not really.
You know, and you can, and as long as women are still open to you and they're 28, 27, 26, you're going to be choosing that. It's just the market changes, right? So it's not that the women that have a child are making unhappy marriages. They're entering probably already in a different state of their life, and they're probably not entering their most ideal relationship. Like I know that like you still want to marry a royal prince and he's handsome and successful. He takes you across the world on his jet, which is great, but it's like probably you're going to have to acquiesce on a few variables and you're going to have to go for a vice duke or something. I don't know. I'm not dunking on you. I'm just saying, like statistically speaking, I don't want to misinterpret that data.
I'm still waiting for my Prince Charming. Let's see.
You had a 10-year relationship. How's that? And you had a kid with this guy. Like, how was that not a good? Was that not a good relationship? 10 years.
Yeah.
So is like, what are you gonna do? Would you take those 10 years back?
No.
So what's the problem?
No, I don't have.
That's a time for a different conversation, right? It's like if you were married for a long time or in a relationship for a long time and it was a good relationship, is that considered a successful relationship? Like, did you have to die together for it to be considered successful? I don't think so. I don't think you need to die together for it to be considered successful.
Yeah, probably.
All right, now that everybody's sad. Yeah, listen, so we are discussing truths because at our company, LGFG Fashion House, we sell high-end bespoke suits to very successful men. If you want to be around millionaires and billionaires all day for work, if you want to sell luxury products and meet the movers and shakers of industry across all countries across the world, we sell in 27 countries, I think, today, then apply at LGFG.com. LGFG, that's like look good, feel good, LGFG.com. We're hiring, we're building. I'm very thankful for this panel. Lilian and Alex actually work at LGFG, so you get to be around intelligent, thoughtful, and ambitious people, and we make millionaires in this company. 53% of all LGFG salespeople earn $100,000 or more within 18 months. Market leaders, 250 partners in the company, $500,000 plus. You can also like and subscribe, and we're going to give you great scientific content where we cite studies to show you real statistics so you can learn about how the world truly operates.